As the days inch closer to the big day where families gather for all the food and hot chocolate and Christmas treats and presents, of course, if you're a family that does that. Hopefully, you are also deep into the season of watching your favorite holiday movies. And as such, I this well, you know what this video is about. You clicked on it, you saw the title, you know what time it is. So let's talk about Red One. Let's do it. This is a movie that's getting a lot of hate right now. And well, perhaps I think at this point in time, at the time of the recording of this video, we're well into December, and the hate has probably died down a little bit on it. I think because the movie dropped in November. If I recall correctly, I think it had a brief theatrical release, and then it went straight to Amazon not long after its theatrical run, which is a real shame because I think this would have been a fun movie to watch in theaters. It seems like outside of articles you might be reading about the movie or fairly recent videos, I'm fairly late. I'm late to the party, so I'm coming up on all the hate, and it sounds like so it feels very fresh to me because I've been immersed in some of the stories around the movie, and looked at some interviews from the cast and filmmakers behind the project. Just because I wanted to know more about the movie, aside from what I thought about the movie. If you haven't guessed by now, I actually did enjoy the movie. I liked it, and I'll tell you why. I know why people don't like it, or why there seems to be a lot of negative feelings around the movie, and I have to say that I didn't. Everybody has their own opinion. I felt differently about the movie, and like I say, I've said this in many videos before around word of mouth. I see comments and I hear people talk about different movies, even people that I know who have decided they won't see a movie because of someone else. They said, "Oh, so and so said this movie is wax. I'm not going to watch them. I'll wait for DVD or whatever." People still do that. I know I do. I look for DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff still. I'm probably, I don't know how many. I know there is a community of people who are still fans of physical media. I got an example right here. I'll show you. So this is one of my favorite shows, and I will talk about this show too. This is an amazing show. If you haven't seen Arcane, watch this. Physical media. I wanted to own it because I just wanted it hard copy. There's something about having it in your adding it to your collection of stuff. So people who still care about that, I am a part of that team. I'm mad if you go to stores right now. Sometimes some stores you won't see physical media stations anymore. I went to Best Buy recently. They don't have anything, which is so silly. Anyway, that aside, for movies that people don't like, they've decided, oh, I'm going to wait for physical media or I'll wait to stream it or whatever. And whatever. And this is even if you decide you want to watch it. Personally, I'm almost more curious when someone says they don't like a movie because I want to know, obviously I care about why they don't like it, but also that makes me go, well, I want to see if I feel the same way when I watch the movie. So I'd like to make my own assessment. And Red One was one of those movies I wanted to do that with, but you could feel it from the trailers. So depending on who you were, you saw a trailer and maybe you thought it was corny and you thought it was going to be stupid, just another vehicle for The Rock to do the normal Rock things we've seen him do in the past decade or whatever it is. And if you thought that, you're not incorrect. However, I still think there's something fun about, first of all, look, on one hand, there's something fun about The Rock doing The Rock things. Sometimes people just want to see that guy. They want to see him be, I watched an interview years ago. I think Daniel Radcliffe was talking about one of his guilty pleasures or one of his favorite things to do at home. His favorite types of movies to watch are The Rock movies. I could have made that up, but I remember him saying something about like watching movies with The Rock in it, because you just feel so protected. You feel like he's gonna just come in with his big muscles and his big body and just take care of you, shepherd you through this action adventure situation. He's gonna really take care. And I felt this before I'd seen this interview, and particularly one of the movies I felt this. I'm not a like a diehard fan of The Rock movies. I do think Dwayne Johnson is charming, and I will watch his movies. But I really felt what Danny Radcliffe was talking about with San Andreas, particularly. I think that's probably one of my, if I'm going to pick a favorite Rock movie, that's probably one of my favorite rock movies. He's taking care of people, man. This is what's going on. And I felt the same with Red One. But it's different though. I think because this movie, it's not just, The Rock isn't the only one holding the proceedings together. Chris Evans, that's right, Captain America, also, I think he does a decent job as the co-lead of this movie. And the two of them really anchor the proceedings in a way that it maintains the fun of what Christmas movies, like the fun Christmas, like action comedy Christmas movie type things should be. I feel like they should be fun. This isn't It's a Wonderful Life, and it's not Miracle on 34th Street. And there are some serious, like really earnest classic Christmas movies that, and Home Alone, and that really that tap into the feeling, the spirit of Christmas as we know it here in the States. And I think this movie is not that. So I think it's about managing your expectations. And I think for some people who saw the trailer, they expected something, they knew either it was going to be whack and I'm not going to watch it, or they might have thought, oh, this could be actually good. And they saw it, and some people were disappointed or whatever it is. I was not disappointed. And I think here's one of the main reasons why, outside of Dwayne Johnson and Chris Evans, I thought they were serviceable and solid in this movie, and really had moments of heartfelt sincerity in this movie, even, real, like the humor is, maybe the jokes don't land all the time, but they're not flat. The jokes are never flat. Even if they don't land, that doesn't mean they still have something about them. I can't quite describe the right term for what I think they feel like. They're never bland. They don't feel like bland jokes. Aside from that, I think that the fact that the movie takes the mythology seriously to some extent, but also doesn't skimp on the fun inherent in taking the mythology seriously. Look, you're talking to somebody. Some of you know this. I'm sure I've mentioned this on a couple of other videos before. I have a couple of books I've written that deal with mythological things, dragons, witches, fairies and things. And those stories take the myth seriously. You talk about serious, like I think I'm probably more serious. There's very little humor, and it's like, this is for real. It's like serious business. And I love that Red One takes the idea of Santa Claus and actually gives us a new kind of, a new Santa Claus, a Santa Claus we haven't seen before. Because there's been so many different renditions of the character of Santa Claus, the idea of Santa Claus. But we haven't seen one like this. And I think that I thought it was pretty cool. And I like that there's this sort of agency that oversees all the myths, not just Santa Claus, but, things like Krampus, the Headless Horseman, like trolls and witches. There's like all these different types of mythological ideas and characters that someone is over watching that type of stuff. There's an agency that is governing, like observing what's happening. They operate like the FBI or, CIA. And I presume if you wanted to, for this movie, you could tell other stories in other mythological areas outside of the North Pole. And I think it could be cool. Personally, though, as cool as that could be, I don't know that I want to see that. I feel like this is very special in that. I think it's special as a single, like a spinoff. Fine, you could have a spinoff of other people in the mix. I don't know if I want to see a sequel to this per se. but that's beside the point. I do enjoy when myth is taken for real, like it's earnest for the most part. And surprisingly, there were moments that really moved me, like got me emotional or whatever it is. And so I've been talking about the movie. I'm telling you, if you don't know what it's about, obviously Santa Claus is kidnapped, and Calvin Drift, played by Dwayne Johnson, Calvin Drift, Maestro. If you're watching this video, it reminds me of the Steven Seagal situations. We talked about this, how Steven Seagal in a lot of his movies, he always seems to be cast as the guy who has all the skills. He's like the best guy who knows everything, martial arts expert, and he's the hero of the story. In some ways, oddly, you could make an argument that Dwayne Johnson does, for whatever reason, similarly is cast in the roles of the guy who's like the cool guy. He's super charming. But I think the difference is, though, Dwayne Johnson is actually charming, though. I'm sure some people look it. I'm not saying Steven Seagal is not charming, but my feeling is that he's less charming than Dwayne Johnson is. So take that however you want. Dwayne Johnson to me feels genuinely charming, and I think that's the difference. You got J.K. Simmons also, who is fantastic as Santa Claus, and this is what I'm talking about. So J.K. Simmons is Santa Claus. He's kidnapped, right? And Callum Drift is the head of the Secret Service in a way, when it comes to, like, it's the Secret Service type of situation, but for Santa Claus. He's like a dignitary. You know, he's the mayor of somewhere. He's like an important person, and he needs somebody to, you know, he's got a team of people protecting him. And what's cool about, right, that's what's happening. So he's got a, Callum Drift has to go bring Santa back. Obviously, of course, this happens right before Christmas. So he gets kidnapped, and Callum Drift has to find Santa, but they need help. So they end up stumbling upon Chris Evans, who inadvertently had something to do with the disappearance of Saint Nicholas of Myra, whatever. And an adventure ensues, and they have to go get this guy back so that they can save Christmas. And that's the premise. You have seen a movie like this before. This is not necessarily a new idea. It's White House Down. You know, it's Olympus Has Fallen. You know, there's some version of that where, you know, you've seen this movie before. It just has Christmas packaging. That's the difference. So that's what makes it unique. And it really has, it has a lot of good ideas. Like the idea that there's an agency that works in tandem with the security detail of the North Pole to make sure, and there's like a team. It's not just Dwayne Johnson. Callum is like the lead, but he's got other people who presumably have been on this team for, you know, hundreds of years, however long Santa Claus has been in operation. And they train, they do a whole process 364 days a year to prepare for the one night where Santa Claus has to make those deliveries. And I think that just the idea of that is actually pretty cool. Like I haven't heard that described before. Like how Santa Claus gets ready for Christmas. So that's pretty cool. There's a lot of good things going on about it. Like I mentioned, Krampus is mentioned in this movie. That's really cool too. The way he's worked in. You got a Christmas witch as our villain situation. It's got a lot of fun things about it. I think if you allow yourself to just be taken by the story, regardless of CGI stuff that you don't like, or regardless of like the weird writing in certain places or whatever it is, you know, you could still have it. You could have a good time. Honestly, weirdly, my biggest problem with the movie is that Santa Claus's sort of government name is Nick. Well, you know, Saint Nick, whatever. I'm with it. I can get behind it. But for some reason, I was expecting, I wanted him to be called Chris, you know, Kris Kringle. Chris, I wanted that name, but whatever. That's a nitpick, you know, whatever. It's, aside from that, the movie, that's the only thing that irked me about the movie. But otherwise, it's fun. I had a lot of fun with it. And I liked the different ideas that I brought up, because it felt like to me, the movie would have been something I would have liked as a kid. and I didn't have to go far to sort of tap into that. Like I feel like I'm not far from that just generally in my everyday life. So which is why I was interested when I saw the trailer. I was like, oh, that looks cool. I'll check it out. You know, because again, I feel like I live in that space all the time anyway. And so it was fun for me. I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the parts where it was serious, where like they took things seriously. And I think that is part of the humor too, because it's funny to hear grown-ups talking about macaroons, cookies, and but with a dead seriousness though. Like this is like national security type of serious. Like, what are Santa Claus's favorite cookies? And having someone who knows Santa Claus well enough to know what's his favorite cookie, what's not his favorite cookie, and like what that to me is there's something funny about that. And doing it with like, this is like, just imagine that somebody's Secret Service, like the president, like someone's on the Secret Service detail right now with Joe Biden or whatever it is, and someone talking about, hey, the president likes Rocky Road, blah blah. Like that's hilarious to me. But it's very serious though. They're talking about it as if it's like they came across some really important document that has the launch codes to some nuclear missile or something like that. It's like, that's how serious. Outside from the written humor, like I feel like they have to understand, they have to know when they wrote the scripts for this movie that people talking about the stuff that seriously is funny. That's on its own funny too. So there's this other layer of humor that that the movie has that makes it extra fun. So anyway, that's just me. That was my viewing of the movie. And one of the other things I think I really loved about this movie, it really spoke to me. There's a scene in this movie. It's not long. It's a short scene in the first act of the movie where Callum has a hard time seeing the reasons why he continues to do the job. Why does he continue to be the security lead to protect Santa Claus? He's starting to see a lot of heavy stuff in the world, and along a lot of people, all the adults and stuff in the world, and it's hard to see that they're not in the Christmas spirit, and it's like this. It's just like not a happy feeling. It's Christmas time, and he's not really feeling it because he's seeing how people are treating each other in the real world and how they're just moving. And there are more people on the naughty list this year than there were in previous years. And so that's weighing on Callum. So he's sitting and having a conversation with Santa Claus, and Santa Claus is, ever the optimist, is like, the reason we do this is for the kids. Callum's talking about, no, it's not the kids, it's the grown-ups. They're not that great. But if you have Santa Claus tell it, there's no difference, because the lost grown-ups are still kids inside, and it really resonated with me because this is something that I believe. I talked about this. I've had some conversation with friends around how, like, grown-ups, they grow up sometimes. We think we know all these things. We think we know everything. Like, we're so much better than something or someone else because we are grown-ups and we're smarter with this and that. Well, I don't care how far you are in this journey of life. There's still some element of like, we're all just figuring things out. You're still a kid inside, even though you're not socially a kid. Like you're not 5 years old, but there's an element, those things, those feelings, that person doesn't go away. That little person inside doesn't go away. And I think if that's part of the fun of why Christmas should feel the way it should. I mean, how I think it should feel. Christmas is like, it's a time, if you're in the spirit, whether you're a kid or not, you're just enjoying being in the moment of whatever Christmas time feels like for you. You have hopefully, you have happy Christmas memories from when your time is, but even if you don't, there's something happy and positive and just lovely about seeing kids and other people enjoy the holidays. They're just, there's something really nice about that. And that the movie sort of speaks to that. Like, yo, this is for the kids and the kids here. And I feel like, I don't care how bad the movie actually could have been. That is one of the things that saves that's a huge, like, I was already in because I liked the premise, but that line really, it really hit me. Because I feel like that's part of like, and I'll be honest, in recent years, I've been a bit of a Scrooge, just feeling about like holiday time is always hard for me. the last several years has been a challenging time. There's always something major happening, something that's not happy, something is, and it makes it kind of hard to enjoy the holidays. And so when movies like this actually at its heart remind you of that, of the positive, like, oh, there is something really special about this time. And even if you're not around your people, like to be able to tap into the feeling of what that is and not have it feel heavy. I think this movie does a good job of that. It still manages to be fun and has some good action. It's not probably like the best action in terms of how it's staged, how it's shot. It is a little bit hard to follow sometimes with the cinematography and stuff like that. But I think the choreography, the structure of the action sequences are really it's pretty cool. And I think especially especially if you're a kid, you don't care about, like, you just see some cool stuff happening. You don't care about how it's shot and how it's, and I think that element, that angle of it helps to go, that's cool to see this thing happening. It's cool how they use the tech that they have to get the job done. The good guys, how they're trying to do things to ultimately get, succeed in finding Santa Claus, bringing him home and allowing him to do his job. And I think that there's a magic in that. And, I think it works. It worked for me personally. It definitely tapped into something that made me feel like I would have enjoyed it as a kid in the 90s. And I don't know. I'm actually kind of glad this movie exists, and I think this would be one that I could see myself watching again. It was it was fun. Again, this is not going to win any awards, I don't think. This is just, if we're talking about brass tacks, black and white on paper, the movie's not going to win any awards, I don't think. But I think, and I've seen this in my, my research and making notes and different things about, as I was preparing to do this video, that there is a group of people who do enjoy this movie. And I think I'm a part of that group. I'm hearing more negative things about it, but I think there's some people out there who like it. And I liked it too. So look, if you're a fan of The Rock, and you've liked anything he's done in the last decade, you'll like this movie. And just by the same token, Chris Evans, if you liked him at all, it's a good, it's a fun pairing to see those two together. But for the most part, I think the strongest thing for me was like the moments of sincerity when it did get serious. I think I felt the even Krampus. There's a really great scene with Krampus that I think ultimately it works. It really works. And the prosthetics, the way he looks, it's practical, it's real. Like, it's, if you were there on set, you could touch him and you can feel all his muscles, and it's like he's there. It's like it's right there. And I think that's such a cool. It's cool. Like, it's, this. So, and he elicited some feelings from me. Like, I actually, like, he was a character. He was like a real flesh and blood character. He was funny. He was menacing. He also there was moments of, like, he let moments of like, heart and like warmth, like some other stuff came through, and it was like, that's all right. I can get behind it. So look, Red One is not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but it was mine. And I'd be curious to know what you think. Should you see it? I'm not going to say don't see it. Again, me. Look, make your own assessment. I think definitely it's worth a look. That's what I'll say. I think it's worth a look. You might have fun. You might enjoy it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe it's gonna be corny. It's gonna be, but there's a nice. I think it's an overall, as with all the bells and whistles and stuff that this movie brings you, it is fun. It does have a nice little story arc, and it actually gives you. This is something that I was surprised. I didn't think I was going to see that the movie actually really does a good job of actually breaking down, and even if it's broad strokes, the process of, it gives you an idea of how things work at the North Pole with regard to how they're getting all the presents ready, and how Santa Claus actually executes the job. Like, he prepares all year for the one night, and then he's like, this is the big night. You got to, all out. We're going to go all over the world. And this is like, it's a really cool sequence. And I thought it was very strong. I'd never seen that before. And I thought it was, I think it's cool. I would recommend, just for that alone, again, one scene doesn't make the whole movie, but for some movies they might. And for you, it may make the movie for you. I don't know. But look, at the end of the day, Red One was fun for me. I'd be curious to know what you think. But that's going to do it on this review of Red One. So if you're stuck around to the end of this video, thank you for hanging in there and listening to me rant and like gush about this movie that apparently a lot of people hate. But yeah, I'm getting out of here. I'll be back with another review, another video really soon. So stay tuned. And look, again, happy holidays. You know, I'm sure I may see you again before Christmas, but if I don't, happy holidays. See you next time.